Leaving the United States and moving to France was the best decision that my husband and I have ever made, aside from marrying each other. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about why we moved to France and how we saved enough money to make the move to France. FYI, we're not trust fund kids, and we are not rich or privileged in the sense of wealth. I worked minimum wage jobs and hustled it out 7 days a week for a year and a half before we made the move to France. I saved $10,000 earning minimum wage. Not only are we going to be sharing the story on how we moved to France and made it happen, but I'm going to share the story of how I saved enough money for us to start our lives completely over, earning minimum wage, to dismantle the belief or idea that you may have that you have to be rich in order to move abroad. Let's settle and unpack this now. Here we have on the podcast today my husband, Alex Vera Woods, the founder of Why Move to France on Instagram, Why Move to France, his website, Move to France and Teach English, where he helps people move abroad with resources, blog posts, YouTube videos, a course, and an ebook to help people get settled, culturally adapted, and find jobs where they can to teach English. So Alex, thank you and welcome to the podcast Cosmic Compass.
Thanks. Glad to be here. And oh my God, that is probably the best intro I've ever had for my business. Thank you.
Really?
Yeah, that was incredible.
Wow. I'm so pleased.
It was really good. I was like, wow, that's me. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've done a lot. You have a course, you have a YouTube channel. You've done so much. You're a generator of ideas and content. And now you even have a job board where you post jobs for people who want to move to France.
Yeah, and I'm actually... this evening, I'm going to be consulting somebody for an hour and helping them prepare to move to France and what are the steps and how they can achieve that as well.
Oh my God, amazing. I'm so glad that you're on the show to inspire and uplift people to show them how they can do it too if they wanted to, because astrology is about to get crazy in the US from 2025 to 2033. And it is personally, I feel my job, my duty to help people move abroad if they want to, if it aligns with their values. So tell us, why did we move to France? Share us the story.
Yeah. So I grew up in Europe, right? So I spent 6 years in France, 6 years in Austria, and I came back to the US knowing that I loved Europe and I had the languages. I learned French, I learned German. My father's Venezuelan, and so I took some Spanish classes and I did a study abroad in Spain later. And so I already had this love for Europe and for France in particular. And I always felt like I wanted to move back to Europe. I didn't know if it was going to be for a year or two. When we were dating, actually, I had a summer abroad, 3 weeks in Wuhan, China, teaching English. So that one was a bit more challenging, but it didn't require any money, actually. I just applied. I saw the job posting online. I applied. I had some experience teaching English before. I got my CELTA, The CELTA, for those who don't know, is the Certificate for English Language Teaching Assessment. It's from the University of Cambridge. That's right. And you can get it after just 1 month of intensive learning how to teach English. So I always wanted to move abroad eventually, and I wasn't sure when or how. But we were living in the US at the time, and you were the one actually who kind of gave us that push to move abroad at the right time. So
I'll set the stage. I'll set the scene. It was my 22nd birthday.
Your memory is so good at this. I always forget.
Or maybe it was my 23rd. It's May 17th, 2017. We were sitting on the lawn outside of the White House in Washington, D.C. We had just moved to a small town, Alexandria, Virginia.
Yeah.
And I was hustling, waitressing, working retail jobs, minimum wage. I was babysitting 3 babies at a time. Literally one of the hardest jobs of my life was juggling so many jobs at once.
Yep.
I had a bike. We didn't have a car, so I would bike everywhere to save money.
Yep.
I was constantly scared about getting in a car crash or a bike accident or hurting myself because I didn't have the money for health insurance or to get seen by a doctor. You got hurt pretty soon after we moved to Virginia. You got in a bike accident.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really afford to be seen by a doctor. And it was just, we were sitting outside of the White House and I just thought there's got to be another way to live. There's got to be another way that we can live where we don't have to worry about if we get in a bike accident and we have to go to the hospital to be seen by a doctor, it's not going to cost us our life savings.
Yeah.
Or if I wanted to go back to school, because at the time I wanted to go back to university to get my degree because I had dropped out. I didn't have money. I didn't have family support from my parents. I love learning. I love school. My Mercury's in Gemini. I want to soak up every piece of knowledge I can, but I couldn't afford to go to school in the United States. And so I was doing research online in Virginia about universities in Europe. University of Leipzig, universities in Germany and France, Lille, that have free public education. You can get your bachelor's degree entirely taught in English, entire programs for free. And I was just reading about all the benefits that the government provides for its people. And that's always resonated with me and my values. And I just turned to you on that day of my birthday and I said, Alex, let's leave. Let's make the move to Europe. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Like, I want something more. I can see where our values are and they're not here. And it was just a realization, it was very clear that we could be happier. Couldn't life be different somewhere else?
Yeah. Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to apply abroad. Like one of the ideas I had behind, I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. I knew I didn't want to do business. I wanted to teach. I learned that after tutoring a little bit, but I didn't want to tutor kids, like young kids. And so that's why I got the CELTA, and then I was able to teach ESL, and I loved it, and I went back to school and do my master's because I wanted to learn more about how to properly teach ESL because I really enjoyed it. It just felt so right, so like a glove, especially I was teaching at these private language schools in Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C., where I taught right by the White House. I was able to walk to the White House during lunches. And all these different students were from all around the world, and it felt like it fit really well. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is a unique opportunity. I have an ability to teach English, and people around the world want to learn English. I could teach in China, in South Korea, in Japan. I could teach in Colombia. I could teach in France or in Germany, maybe. All these places. So that's why, remember, I applied to all these different countries.
You applied to ELF, the English language fellow with the State Department.
Yeah. So with the U.S. government, there's English language fellowship, and they give you a really good, I think it's like 30 or 33,000 USD. That was back in the day. Maybe if they've increased it, although maybe not now that Trump's in power. That's a question that they're cutting back and stuff. But so that was a really good program. The problem is that you couldn't choose where exactly you could go, and oftentimes they would send you to hardship posts.
I remember we really wanted ELF, didn't we? I was like really trying to get you to get ELF because it had such a good salary.
Yeah, so it was a good salary. The partner can come with you. They give you housing, and it's only for 10 to 12 months, I think, which at the time felt like it was a great thing.
We just wanted to experience something different.
Exactly.
Some stability.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, like as an English teacher, your money was up and down. Like if you got classes or not. Sometimes you wouldn't get classes or money would change every week. It was 2 or 3 different
part-time jobs, and it was a lot more work during the summers because students would come, and then if it was the winter, students wouldn't come, so they had to cut back on the hours.
And that affected your financial stability.
Yeah, so I had to find other jobs to make up the difference during the fall because I had to pay the rent, half the rent. I had to do that.
And that's another thing, the U.S. cost of living. I mean, it was bad back in 2018 and in 2017, which is when we realized we wanted to leave. It was just too expensive. Rent was so expensive. Yeah. Now living in France, I'm like, oh my God, the rent costs in the U.S. are insane. Like we pay 650 euros a month, 750 euros a month for beachside apartments with balconies overlooking the ocean.
Yeah.
A house in the mountains with 4 bedrooms. I mean, that was like middle of nowhere in the middle of Corsica, but we're talking 600-700 euros a month. Now we live in the center of Versailles in a very nice apartment in the center of town, walking distance to the gardens outside of Paris. So it's like our rent is a lot more, but it's, it's nothing compared to what people are paying for rent in the US. And I'm not talking about major cities like New York, LA. I'm talking about small town Virginia. I'm talking about just towns in nice, places. It's expensive. And then car costs, rent, gas, all the things, health insurance. It's like, I don't know how Americans are doing it. I really don't.
I think the thing is that it's kind of like Well, there's less of wealth inequality in France and in Europe. So what that means is that rent will never be too expensive, but it'll be really hard to make a lot and save a lot of money at the same time.
Yeah. You don't have
You know,
extra money left over
you
for
don't
like
have-
enjoyment.
Exactly. And the other thing is, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how much you progress in your job, you'll still have a cap that's pretty low.
Yeah.
You know, so like you're never going to be able to earn a huge amount in France. But then the state provides everything that you would spend that money on in the US anyways. So it's kind of like a give and take. So I feel like in the US, it can be great if you're wealthy. And when I say wealthy, I mean 120,000
minimum
a year minimum.
Yeah.
92, 120,000.
No, like 60K today, or is like 30K 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like back, I remember in 2017, 60K was a lot, was good. Yeah. Now you need minimum 100K to like get by in the US, I feel like, just to be comfortable these days.
For healthcare, for transportation, for grocery cost, for rent in particular. And it doesn't matter.
For buffer, for savings, retirement.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where you live. So if you don't have a good job, you really suffer in the US. And if you're unemployed, it's even worse, right?
Yeah.
In France, if you're unemployed, you're going to get a minimum amount of things, but it's still going to be okay, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
how did we make the move to France? So you got a job?
Yeah, so I should preface this by saying that I did grow up in France. I spent 6 years from 5 to 11 in France. So I learned French there. I continued studying French. It's not like I could have lost it, but I kept up with it. And then I also got my master's at Columbia University because I wanted to learn more to study ESL. So once I knew French and I got a master's, I was a really good candidate to teach at a university in France. And I didn't know this at the time, but all these universities all across France are hiring two positions, a lecteur de langue and a maître de langue, which is basically like a teaching assistant and like a main teacher, but it's only 1 to 2 year jobs. You probably know this already, but all across France, and they hire every year, all the time, particularly between February to June. Mm-hmm. And so I had no idea about this. I happened to be on the University of Columbia's listserv for jobs. And so I saw this job run through, and it was a job in France, in Strasbourg. And I looked at the salary and I said, oh no, that's too low for 2 people. So I knew I'd have to support you. And so I wrote it off. And then my good friend Alejandro sent me the same email saying, hey, did you see this job? I think you should apply. And
he was a guardian angel.
Yeah, when he sent me that, I was like, well, maybe I should. Even if it's a low salary, I should at least apply and see. Because I didn't know the rent was so cheap in France at the time. I didn't know the groceries were so cheap. And I didn't know that the salary actually was well over half what rent would have been.
Yeah, because we didn't know the cost of living in France.
It's
way lower.
We were paying, I think it was 1,600 USD for a 1-bedroom apartment in Alexandria. Mm-hmm. And this job would have been, I think it was 1,400 or 1,500 euros a month. Mm-hmm. I think that was after taxes. And I thought that's not going to be enough for 2 people if the rent's going to be 1,600. But no, the rent, if you remember it, once we got it, was 650.
Yeah.
So it's a little less than half, actually. And so it was definitely enough, but I didn't know that at the time. Mm. And so, so it was great that he sent us that. And so then I applied, and I was ranked 2nd. And in fact, I applied very quickly over the phone. It was all of a sudden a phone interview, not even a video call. It was just a normal phone call. They texted me the morning of saying, hey, can you do an interview? And I was like, I have a 15-minute lunch break. I can only do it at that time. Or I think it was, a break between classes because of the time difference. And so I went into a classroom and they called me.
You give so many.
I know. I'm sorry. I go into too many details. But basically, they called me. I didn't know I had an interview until the morning of the day. And then they called me on the phone and we had the interview. And I was like, oh my gosh. And part of it was in French. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it was going to be in French. Right. It was all so sudden. And then all of a sudden I was ranked 2. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so they offered it to somebody else. And then the other person turned it down.
And that's why you got it. Yeah.
Thank goodness that they turned it down.
For anyone wondering, I always make fun of him because every time he tells stories or just like talks to me about anything, he goes so into the details that I'm like, okay, what's the point? What's the point of like what we're talking about? We're getting lost.
I like the details.
We're getting lost into the crevices of this rock that's 10 layers deep.
Yeah, I go into too many details, but then maybe, dear listener, you might enjoy the details. And you'll say, Alex, continue. I don't know.
I'm always making fun of him for that. So how did we move to France after that? Like, what did you have to do?
We tried to sell. Did we sell some stuff, or did we just
sold
get rid
all
of
our
everything?
furniture? We sold everything.
That's
we put
right.
everything on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and we sold
Craigslist.
everything.
I think it was mainly Craigslist.
Craigslist. We had people coming over to her house every day. And
yes,
we
that's
sold
right.
every piece of furniture that we had.
So we had just furnished our apartment because it was unfurnished.
It was a year and a half. Yeah.
So we lived there 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even a year and a half. It was 15 months, a year and 3 months. And then we sold everything. Anything that we couldn't sell, we just gave it to Goodwill.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it we stored in my parents'
A few
attic.
boxes, yeah.
But it was just boxes, no furniture or anything like that.
We went to the prefecture. I didn't get my visa to the last minute.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
We got married because we had to. Literally, it was in our Zodiac releasing, which if you guys don't know, I'm an astrologer, full-time astrologer. And it was like in the Zodiac releasing the day we decided to get married in September of 2017. And then the day we got married, there was a repetition, loosing of the bond. Yeah. Foreshadowing period in September. So it's just fascinating how it showed up.
I remember I got offered the position. I interviewed and got offered the position in April. Mm-hmm. And then in May, I was waiting for a document on their side so I could apply for the visa. Mm-hmm. And then I finally got the document in May or beginning June. I think it was May, yeah. And then I applied for the visa in May. And then June 1st, we got married. Mm-hmm. End of June, we finally got the visa, which we had to give away our passports. So we had no passports.
I know. And we asked all of our family members to give us money for our honeymoon and our travels to start our life over in France. So I want to talk a little bit really quickly, and I'll include a blog post down below so you guys can read this in visual format if you're more of a reader. But how we saved $10,000 in 1 year earning minimum wage. And it was mainly me saving up all this money to start our lives over. Mm-hmm. So we asked all of our family at our wedding. We had a little backyard wedding with Domino's pizza and Trader Joe's mac and cheese balls in our parents' backyard. I bought a $300 wedding dress I found on the used or sale section on a website. Never tried on the dress, just bought it. Trusted that it would work out. It did. It was really cute. Literally everything was like DIY, like super cheap. But we asked all of our family to pitch in to give us money to our honeymoon in Egypt and to start our lives over, which was helpful. But what I did was I hustled my ass off for 7 days a week, earning minimum wage jobs. I biked everywhere. We didn't have a car. We chose not to have a car so we wouldn't have that expense because car insurance, gas, very expensive, repairs, everything's really expensive. So we knew that. We weren't going to make that decision of getting a car. We ate, I don't know if you remember, but we ate at home. All the time. We cooked our meals all the time. But we occasionally, we had our favorite restaurants in Old Town, but we didn't go there often.
Maybe twice a week?
No? Way less than that, babe.
Less than that?
I was rereading my blog post that I wrote back in 2018. We never ate out. Like it was very rare that we would go out.
We went out at least once a week for like it wasn't like a full meal. It was like a crap dessert.
Well, yeah, we would do that. We would go out for dessert. If we did go to a restaurant, we would go get appetizers. Yeah. Or we'd get a dessert or a drink.
That's right, yes.
We would never get like a full meal.
Yes, that's right.
We'd never get a full meal. And so we really we went to Trader Joe's all the time. We're always biking to Trader Joe's, getting groceries. We ate at home.
We mainly got the ready-made meals.
Ready-made meals. Yeah. We lived cheap. We lived really cheap. And I was working 7 days a week, like barely ever had a days off. And I liked that. At the time, I remember I was a waiter at a restaurant, and I remember telling my fellow server, I was telling him, I actually like showing up and getting up to go to work every day. even if it's only for like 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Rather than having a full day off. And he thought I was crazy. But like, I don't know. I have a lot of energy. My Mars in Aries in the 6th. I like being active and having places to be, places to go. So I actually liked working every day. I like getting out of the house and having something to do. But no, I would literally wake up in the morning and walk dogs in the morning, get picked up by a mom, because that was later on, but I didn't have a car, so she had to pick me up, or I would bike to a nearby apartment to babysit 3 babies, 18-month-old babies, diapers, all the thing. I did that from, it was like 9 to 2 p.m. I would do that. I would rush back home, walk dogs in the afternoon from like 2 to 2:45, bike 15 minutes to my retail job. I worked at multiple different boutiques. I worked at a consignment store 3 days a week from 9 to 5. I worked at another cute retail shop. I worked at a paper store, paper goods. I worked at a pet store. Yeah. Allie and Indy, such a great pet store in Alexandria, Virginia. I don't know if it's still there.
And then I also worked with you briefly. I tried out being a waiter.
Oh yeah, you were a waiter with me. We
Carluccio's.
We were waiters together at Carluccio's. We did that. Yeah. And I remember your family or your sister was like, why would you be a waiter? And you were like, because I want to, because it's fun.
Yeah, I remember interviewing with the manager, and I gave her a 3-page printout of my resume, including my master's, and she just looked at it and was like, you're the most overqualified person who's ever
for the
applied.
server job. I know.
Why do you want to do it? I'm like, well, I need the money, and I like food, and I want to experience it. Yeah. You know, like I think I would be good at it. You know, I can recommend things, but my memory is not so good. So the high pressure environment was tricky for me.
And I worked on my blog at night. I built my website when there were no customers in the store, and I had my photography business in the weekends. I would do shoots for extra $100 or so. Yeah. It was a hard year and a half, but we did it, and we hustled and we made it work. And I saved $10,000 from working, saving, budgeting, and being really frugal. Like I wasn't shopping. I was super minimalist back then. I was in my minimalism era when we were living in Alexandria. Super into minimalism.
Yeah, I wasn't spending much at all either. I think I would spend most on food. I did eat out more often, but that was because I had these crazy commutes. I don't know if you remember. But I would commute.
Oh, I remember.
I would commute to the school by the White House in D.C. Center. And then from there, I would commute to the suburbs, to this small immigrant community center. Well, a community center that was mainly for immigrants who were living there. And then I would be teaching English or not, because they often wouldn't show up. And then I would go to a third school out in... it was really far out in Virginia, to the point where you needed a car. I would take a train, and then from the train, it'd be impossible to get there. So I'd have to take an Uber 5 or 10 minutes just to get to school to teach. Yeah. And then I'd Uber back to the train station to then take the train, to then take the bus back home. It was like 3 types of commutes. It was like an hour and a half, an hour 45.
Yeah. And you know, it's fascinating to me how people think you have to be rich to move abroad, that it costs so much money to move.
It really wasn't expensive at all.
It was not expensive at all. I worked minimum wage. We saved up that money from a year and a half of hustling 7 days a week to save up that money. We bought one-way plane tickets to France. We found a furnished apartment on Airbnb on Le Bon Coin, which is the kind of the Craigslist of France. Mm-hmm. You could find tons of furnished apartments for very cheap, low prices. Yeah. Like, you don't have phone bills. You know how expensive phone bills are in the US? We don't have that problem in France. It's so cheap to have a phone plan. Like, all these things that were so expensive in the US, they were not expensive in France. And so the move was actually not as expensive as we thought. And so I had all this money. I saved $10,000 from that year and a half. We moved to France. I had all this buffer money because we didn't need to use all of it. And so I would travel. I would go places. I'd go to Portugal. I would go travel solo to different places to experience Europe, which was so fun. When I did that, when we went to Spain that first year in the fall.
The road trip.
We did a road trip through Spain. Yeah. We used some of the savings from that for that. I mean, people think that you have to be super wealthy. And I'm tired of the excuse. It's an excuse. It really is.
Yeah.
Yes, it costs money. But if you are so freaking determined to make it happen, you will take on that extra side hustle or that part-time job. And you will put well, here's the thing. It's so expensive to live in the US these days.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how people, I would get rid of the car, right? What are the first things you can get rid of? Get rid of the car, get rid of the bills that are non-essential.
Mhm.
Like, the things you need are rent, food, right? Like, what are the prerequisites? Those you got to pay for. But the other things, get rid of the things that you don't need.
The best thing, if possible, is really just to work online so that then you don't have to get a car.
Yeah. Work remotely.
Maybe just Uber or order groceries online so they can be delivered if you live in a place where you can't drive.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have to drive to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Just take the bus or Uber, so you don't have the car.
Yeah.
Use your bike to get to where you need to go. And then.
And we moved to Virginia to save money. We were living in New York City before. And I wanted to save money so that I could travel. And so we moved to Virginia, small town Virginia.
We wanted a nicer atmosphere, like a bigger place for a cheaper cost.
Yeah.
I love that.
But it's like we did the essential swaps so that we could afford to live the life that we wanted to.
Yeah.
We sacrificed the things that we didn't want anymore. We didn't have the car. We left the city. We got the extra couple of jobs to make ends meet, to have a little bit of buffer money. I would take extra jobs on the weekends, extra shifts. We did it so that we could fulfill our dream of moving to France and leaving the United States. We weren't wealthy. We didn't have money. We didn't have support from other people. We weren't trust fund kids.
No.
We literally built this life. And I hate that people use the excuse of you're a trust fund kid and that's why you were able to move. People say this all the time. Privilege, that's why you were able to move.
If you have 2 children and a spouse, then I can kind of see it.
Right.
But the thing is, like, all you need is like 2 to 3 months rent. And 2 to 3 months rent, 3 months rent in France looks like 1,800 to 2,000 euros, which would be 2,300, 2,400. That's all you need. You need that deposit and then maybe a little bit of buffer for like transportation. Transportation is so cheap in France. You don't need that at all. What else is there? Buy a bike. Healthcare is free, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Groceries are, I would say, you could easily do 200 a month, 300 max. And with no transportation, it's just like, what else are you going to spend the money on?
Yeah.
You don't need anything. You just need, there's no other costs. That's it. So we're looking at easily save 3,000 USD. That's it.
Save $3,000 to make the move to France.
Can you save out $3,000? And that's for 2 people.
Yeah. Now, we were young, but I want to also give the other excuse that people love to make, which is age. I have a friend, Janice in France. Search her on YouTube. 70 years old, moved to France, bought a ticket, left her life behind, sold her things, left her family, her kid back home in the US, started her life over because she had a dream to leave the United States and fulfill her dream of moving to Paris.
Wow.
She did it at 70 years old, alone. Got rid of everything. I think she brought her dog with her. Inspirational.
So she had to figure out the language.
And she's not wealthy.
Cultures.
She's not rich.
Yeah.
She saved what she could to start her life over.
Yeah.
And I see these excuses all the time. And I just think if there's a will, there's a way. Like, you'll find a way to make it happen if it's something that you really, really want to do. If you can't live without it, you will make it work.
Save $3,000, learn some intermediate French. That's all you need. And you can go by yourself and you can figure it all out.
Yeah.
Really.
You can go to school, get a free degree, enroll in college. It'll give you a visa for 2 years. Yeah,
you could do, in France, you'd have to speak French for the undergrad. But if you already have an undergraduate degree, there are many universities that have free master's programs in English.
Yeah.
Especially business management, if you're interested in that. And then oftentimes those master's programs will literally give you or help fast track you to get an internship, a paid internship that then leads to an actual job.
Yeah.
A lot of people do masters and then job through the masters. And you get a visa for the masters. And you can even apply for citizenship after you do 2 years of the masters. If we had lots of money and we wanted to do it again, I would say and we both knew French, let's say. We would move to France, do a master's program in just 2 years, and then we could apply for the citizenship.
So you just applied for citizenship and you have your interview coming up in a few weeks?
Yeah.
Are you really excited?
May 26th. So
the astrology looks good for that day. I think the results will be good. Are you excited after applying for jobs for the last 7 years to finally get the citizenship so that you can stay here?
Oh my gosh. Like I will like kiss the French ground if I get the citizenship.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll finally be done with that. It's such a process. Every year applying for jobs, every year worrying about, do I not get the visa or not? Every year it's 225 euros per person for the visa for the renewal.
And FYI, for any of you who want to know the astrology of this, Uranus is on Alex's moon, and it went onto his moon when we got married and we moved to France. So last 7 years, 8 years, right? Literally Uranus on your moon. That's so indicative of this experience you've been going through, which is like you moving every year and not fully feeling settled because everything's up in the air. In terms of safety, security, where are you living, your home situation.
Yeah. And then the citizenship will allow us to work anywhere in Europe. It's not just France. I could go to Switzerland or Germany or Austria or Spain or Portugal.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for you, babe. So excited for you. Yeah, for us. It's great to have you here. So where can people find you and work with you? Maybe they want to book a one-on-one consultation with you so you can help them move to France, look at their resume, help them with their interview for their French job, find job listings. Where can people find you?
So what I do now is I have free videos on YouTube. I have blog posts on my blog, which you can find on my website, movetofranceandteachenglish.com. I have a paid ebook you can find on my website as well, and a paid course if you wanted to see like slides and like pictures and like me walking you through it with audio clips. But then if you wanted like the really personal service one-on-one, I offer one-on-one consulting. So if you're at a stage where you need to find a job, I can create an action plan for people. Mm-hmm. If you want to search for the jobs on your own based on the job listings that I have on my website for free, but then you need help with like, what's the interview going to be like? What questions are they going to ask me? What's it going to be like with a French-English interview? Or is my resume good? Is my cover letter good? Because the cover letter is super important. I offer services for all those things to help them one-on-one with all of my experience applying every year to make sure that they can put their best foot forward to get the jobs in France.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, honey.
It's my
you can
pleasure.
Find all the links to his YouTube, Instagram, website, all the places down below in the show notes. And you can subscribe to his YouTube channel, Move to France and Teach English. Thank you so much for coming on, babe. And I hope that our story inspires you to make the move to the places that most align with your heart and give you the courage to pursue the dream life that you desire. Have a magical day and happy Astro travels.
Bye.